Hi, this is Becky with Icing on Top Becky's Cakes, and today we're going to make this really fun sugar sculpture. I made it out of isomalt today. It's a blown sugar cardinal, a poinsettia, all these fun things. So first we're going to start with the structure base. We're going to use isomalt from Simi Cakes. I'll put her link to her store below, but this makes it super easy because the directions are right on the bag and all you have to do is microwave it. So we just microwave it at 30 seconds to begin with, and then 15-second intervals until it's bubbly like this, and then we wait till it's done boiling and done bubbly before we pour it. I have it on a cookie sheet and a silicone mat so I can easily pick up the cookie sheet and move it while it is hardening, and that way I still have my workspace ready. So I'm going to pour this in my snowflake. Now both of these are silicone, so you can pull the ice malt right out of it once the ice malt's hardened. But I also greased the little metal round thing and the silicone snowflake with a little bit of vegetable oils because of the little details, and anything metal I also do that with that. But the noodles that I used that I got from Simi Cakes, these little silicone noodles, you can mold them any way you want to. Those don't need to be greased because it comes out really easily off of those. But that little snowflake I definitely did. Now I'm gonna put some red ice malt in a little silicone bowl and get that till it's liquefied and pour it right on my silicone mat. Now this is going to be for our bird's body, so I want it so that I can pull it and it's nice and hot. So first, in order to get it to the pulling stage, we're gonna let this liquid get a little tacky first before we try to handle it with our hands. So if you touch it in liquid form, super hot, do not do that. I have done that before. It is not fun. Also, I'm wearing cotton gloves underneath my latex gloves, and that's just so I can handle this when I'm pulling it. Otherwise, yeah, that hurts. So I'm not gonna touch it with my bare hands. I don't have that kind of tolerance. Once it starts to get sticky like this, then I'm gonna lightly touch it with my hands and bring it all together into a little ball here. And that ball I'm gonna pull several times so that the heat is even. And we still want this ball to be very warm when we place it on our copper metal piping that we're going to use for the blower. And so this sugar pump, you can get them from Simi Cake store as well. You can also get them somewhere other places. I'm actually not certain where I bought mine now, but I know you can buy them on Simi Cake store. Now we're going to heat this it's copper pipe. We're going to heat this copper pipe. You can see there's already some dried sugar on from our last project that just helps this stick to it. So that caramelized sugar helps this stick even better than if I didn't have the caramelized sugar on it. Now I'm going to stick that nice very warm ball of red ice malt right on there, about 1/4 the way into my ball, pinching the ends around the copper pipe so that it stays there and that the air doesn't escape, and kind of form it to make sure it stays a ball. And then I'm going to go ahead and give it a pump to see. Yup, there's no air escaped. I can tell by that pump. I'm going to give it another pump here. And see how I hold it? I'm holding it so that my pointer finger and thumb kind of makes the neck of the bird. So when I pump it, the air can go up through the top, but also you form it as you go. So we want it to look like a fat bowling ball pin. It's just the body of the bird. So you just keep forming it as you go. And if it doesn't look how you want to initially, don't worry about it. It's still pretty warm and you can keep forming this. See, as you pump, you can kind of see the air bubble come up, which is really cool. This is the most fun part of it for me, is just watching it slowly fill. And you don't want to do it all at once. You want to give it a pump and then form it a little more. And you definitely want to get the forming down until it gets too hard, but you will have time to work with it. It's not going to be suddenly hardened, so you'll have time to pump and go. And you can tell by feeling it, okay, it's still warm, therefore you still have time to form things. Don't mind if you hear my children in the background occasionally. So I'm still forming him, pushing down on his head. I kind of do that back and forth motion with my hands to make sure that it's even, that the air's in the middle and not too much on one side or the other side. If you pump it too much and it's not even, you might pop on one side. You don't want to do that. Or make it too thin. These are very easy to shatter once they get hard, so you got to be cautious with that. You can kind of see how I'm holding that there with my pointer finger and thumb, and then applying a pump so that the air comes up to the top too. All in all, this is a really fun process. Now let's see if we can zoom in a little and you can see the air bubble as I kind of press. Just look carefully at the air bubble. Really cool. Okay, now the bird's body is getting very close to the shape that I want it at, so I'm going to start cooling it with my fan. So it is pretty cool already, which is why it's keeping its shape as I'm just holding it like this and not like falling over or something. But we want to cool it all the way before we pull the copper pipe out. And the way we pull the copper pipe out is that we take our blowtorch and we're going to see the pipe that's still sticking out at the end of the bird. That's the part that we're going to want to heat. And we're going to heat that for a minute or two and then try to slide the bird up. That copper conducts heat, so it makes the whole pipe hot, so you should be able to slide it out. If it doesn't slide easily, which mine might not slide as easily this time because I have a lot of isomalt down there on that copper pipe, a lot more than I usually do. You don't really need as much as I did this time. But yeah, anyway, it slid out. I had to do it a couple times and then pull and slide. I thought I was recording when I pulled and slide, and I wasn't. But if you want to see the pull and slide, check out my swans, my blown sugar swans. But basically you heat the pipe like this, the copper pipe, and see how it kind of just drips off down there as you're heating the pipe on this end. That's the essential idea. As you pull it out, and then you just pat down the back side of the bird, or you can snip it with scissors because it's soft. Now I'm using some more isomalt and I'm going to pour it in this. It's actually a petal press. It's silicone though. And this is somewhat cooled isomalt liquid, but still pourable. I didn't want to pour it in here when it's still like super duper hot, but kind of jelly-like pourable. Jelly-like pourable. Yeah, that's what it is. Anyway, I'm just going to move it around in this leaf, and I'm just going to press that down gently, and this is going to be one of my bird's wings. Now if you have one of these silicone molds that we use for like hot chocolate bombs and stuff like that, they're really cool, but you can use anything that has a curve. And I'm going to place my wing in there. It's still warm, so it's still bendable, and otherwise it'll shatter. Don't try to bend these when they're hot, and when they're I shouldn't say hot, cold. When they're cold, you don't want to bend them because then they will shatter. But if they're still warm, you can place it in there and it's just going to bend with the shape of this. And then I'm going to make some for the tail. I'm going to use this petal press right here. It's also a silicone petal press. I'm just going to pour that. And like I said, it's not super boiling. Well, it's hot, yes, because it's liquid, but it's not fresh out. I wait a few minutes, maybe 5 minutes after I get it out of the microwave and it's boiling. Give it 5 minutes so it's more jelly liquid, and we'll pour that for the tail, and I'm gonna let that curve as well. And then I finish the other wing, and I'm gonna stick that in one of the other slots. And if you don't have these, I'm gonna show you another curve thing you can use later when I do the poinsettia. But here I'm just going to cut some of that pulled isomalt, just like you pull for the bird. I'm going to cut a little beak for him and mold it with my hands on my silicone mat. And then he's a cardinal, so he's got this little frill above his head, kind of like a mohawk. So we're going to make his mohawk now. And yeah, I have no idea what it's actually called, but we're going to call it a mohawk, and we'll make that for him. And then we're going to heat it with our blowtorch, and we're going to put that right on top of his little head there. And then we're going to do the same thing with the beak. We're just going to lightly touch that to our blowtorch, very lightly, and then press it right to the front of him. And the wings, we're going to lightly touch these because these pieces, obviously, they will melt if you expose them too much to your torch. So you just got to lightly touch it to your blowtorch and then stick it to where you want it to go. But don't heat the body itself. So the body itself is way too thin because we've blown it. So don't heat the body itself with the blowtorch. Otherwise the whole thing will melt. You will be sad. Don't do it. So lightly touch the wings and then we can stick them right on there. And then I kind of have my fan on handy so that can help cool it faster. Oh, and look at him looking so cute, so pretty. I like all the details that those petals give to the wings. That's why I use those petals for wings. I do the same thing with my swans, if you've seen those. Use those petal press for the wings. Otherwise, you can always just pull and cut if you want to. You don't need the petal press. Just use the same pulled sugar like we pulled when we did the balls. Okay, now we're doing poinsettias, so I'm just gonna cut like this. Just cutting the shape of the petals, and then I'm gonna lightly heat it and then press that. Or you can do the pour and press, but this makes it easy for so many petals. Pour, press, and then what you see to the right, that's just a paper towel roll that I've chopped in half so I can use the curvature, and I stuck some wax paper in there. And then I lined them all up and waited till they cooled. And now I have nice curved petals all ready to go. Now here's some hot isomalt right in the middle, and it's starting to get firm enough that I can touch it. I'm going to heat it a little bit, so this little mound in the middle, that's where I'm going to put all my petals. So it's nice and hot, so these will stick to them if you move fast. If you don't move fast, then you're going to have to lightly heat the petals and then place them on this isomalt. But since it's still hot enough, these will all stick there. So I do 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 on the first layer, and then I'm going to do another 6 petals on the next layer. These ones I am going to have to heat with my torch though, because the center has started to not be as hot. So I'm heating them with my torch, and I'm going around and placing those petals right where I want them. And then once I get all my petals where I want them, I'm going to take a little more liquid isomalt that I can put in the microwave, and then I'm going to pour that in the center. And once I've got that poured in the center, I'm going to use my tweezers here to apply these little sugar pearls. They're actually Wilton's gold sugar pearls. They work great for something like this. Now you may ask, can you do this with my sugar recipe instead of isomalt? Yes, you absolutely can. In fact, if you've seen my lily on there, that and my swans are both done with just the sugar recipe. But for a project this big and me always reheating things in the microwave, isomalt reheats much better than sugar. And so it is easier to work with. So this pre-cooked isomalt by Simi Cakes, I absolutely love. And see how easily that snowflake came out? That's because I'd used the oil on that, that piece. And that piece was simply, it was a pancake. It was like a frozen pancake set or something, but it was silicone. It was meant to be used in the pan. So I figured it would withstand the heat, and it did really good. And look at this lovely snowflake here. That could even be like a sun catcher hanging up in the window. Hope it doesn't shatter and break. But yeah, look at how clear that gets when you use a little bit of heat from your torch to clear up some of the fogginess. And I'm going to use that torch to clean up this piece, a little bit of the fogginess. Of course, that came out really easy because it was just on the silicone noodles. And those silicone noodles, so fun because you can make any shape you want. And so I'm going to heat the snowflake first, and then I'm going to heat this piece right where I want it to stick on the snowflake, and that will act as glue because they both have some isomalt that can attach to the isomalt on the snowflake. When you heat both pieces, it melts it just enough to do that. And now that little round piece, I'm going to use that as a stabilizer. I don't necessarily need it, but better safe than sorry. And okay, so I told you before not to heat the bird, But that little piece at the end of the bird, you see how there's extra isomalt from when you pulled the bird out and you had extra at the end. That's the part that is heating here so that it would stick. Otherwise, you can just take some fresh isomalt and dab it there if you're too nervous about heating the bird. And here we go, we're adding the tail to the bird now that it's on here. And finally, we're gonna add some lovely details. I am going to paint with Wilton's paintbrush, and I'm using AmeriColor Super Black, and we're gonna paint on those details that the Cardinal has. And after I'm done painting on the details on his face, I'm going to add a little bit of holly type vines to the side, kind of crawling up the side, and I'm gonna paint that with brown gel food coloring, just very lightly. And once I get the holly, I am going to add little drops of isomalt. I'm just gonna drip, drip, drop it all over my silicone mat and then stick it with my tweezers. I just lightly heat them and stick them right where I want to. And voila, there's our piece. It's done. Thanks for joining me today. And if you want to see any more of my sugar art, please check out my channel and subscribe.